Hello and welcome to another video tutorial Monday. This week I wanted to use a whole bunch of Papertrey Ink goodies because I get a lot of questions on how to use them and how I use them. And I just really feel like using them today. So this is what I'm going to do, and hopefully you can pick up some tips and tricks if you don't know how to work with them already. Today's card is largely inspired by Dawn McVeigh, and if you want to go to her blog, you can go to dawnmcveigh.typepad.com, and I just love her style, and it's pretty similar to mine, so I just wanted to do something inspired by it. So what I'm going to do today, I have my little plan here. I want to make a card that uses an impression plate for the large main piece, and then my matte stack 4 die and stamp to make this focal image with an embellishment in the middle, and then the sentiment right here and some more embellishments right here. So let's get started. So first what I'm going to do is I have my card base. I decided that I'm feeling very pink today, so I cut this out of Raspberry Fizz, and this will be what all of our things go on. It's just a standard size card. And then I have my craft cardstock cut down to just 1/4 inch smaller than the card base, so there'll be a 1/8 inch mat around the whole thing. So that's 5 1/4 by 4 inches. And I'm going to emboss that with my wood grain impressions plate. So I'm going to take my Sizzix Big Shot out. This is the only die cutting machine that I have, so I can't help you much with the Cuttlebug, but there are lots of tutorials out there to help if you need them. Just Google it or YouTube search it, and that will help you a lot. So I'm just going to put down make my sandwich, which is just I flip the top tab up, and you just follow basically the guides on here. And you follow this one right here, the Sizzix texture. And it's pretty similar. You just put your clear mat down, then you put your impressions plate and your cardstock. I want it running vertically, so I'm using this side, otherwise you could use the horizontal side. But I like my wood grain running up and down on my card. And I'm just going to stick it on here. It doesn't have to be too straight with this impression plate, which is something that I really like because I'm not a very precise person. And then you take out your embossing mats, which you can buy these from Papertrey Ink. And you put your larger one down first, right on top of your impression plate, and then the smaller one on top. And then you can just put your clear plate on top of that, and you're ready to go. So here is our embossed piece, and it looks really, really pretty. So that is done. Super easy, as you can see. It's actually really simple to do. All you just have to remember is basically to put your mats on top of your impression, or on top of your paper. And you just use it like you normally would. So then, I also want to go ahead and cut out my matte stack 4 die, which I'm going to be cutting this out of rustic cream cardstock. For this, just like any other Papertrey Ink or wafer thin die, so like Spellbinders are about the same thickness. You just have all of your tabs down. You put your first clear plate down. I put my cardstock down next and then put my die on top. You could do it the other way too, but you know what, it really doesn't matter. And then I'm just going to put the other plate on top and crank it through. Okay, so we have our beautiful matte stack 4 die cut, and look, it's cut so cleanly. I just love these dies. So I'm going to put my Sizzix away for now. So the first thing that I'm going to do is distress the edges of my wood embossed piece of craft with some tea dye distress ink. And I'll keep that near me because I'll be using it again for sure. And I'm just going to set these off to the side for now. I'm going to wait to assemble my card because I'm not sure how exactly it's going to end up yet, so I don't want to commit to anything. So I'm I need to decide which frame to use. I think I want to use the text because I think that'll look really good with the wood grain. So I'm going to adhere this to my block. So now that I have my stamp on my block, I'm just going to ink it up with some Jenny Bolin ink in brown sugar. I was thinking about using my Distress ink for this, but since it's such a fine image, I want that detail to show up because it's text. Okay, and I'm using my mouse pad because it's a really detailed image, so it needs that little extra bounce in it. And I'm just going to get right over it. Make sure I cover all my areas here. And I'm just going to get right over it and stamp. So, I mean, I get really close up to it, and then when it's centered, I just stamp down. Alright, so that's a great impression. And now I can just set that off to the side. And look, it's all centered, and just the trick is just getting right over the top of it and taking your time, don't rush it. So now here's how our card is coming along. This is really cute. And what I'm going to do actually is to let some of that craft show through. I want to cut out this with this die from my Limitless Layers collection, 1 3/4 inches. And this is just the plain circle one. If you had a circle punch that was this size, you could use that as well. But I don't have one that's this size. So I'm just going to line it up and then carefully tape it down with some low tack tape. Now it's ready to run through my die cut machine, keeping all my tabs down, putting it between my 2 clear plates, and then running it through. So we have a wonderful circle right in the middle there, and it's perfectly centered because I just taped it down when it looked perfect. And that's what's really great about these dies. They're cut perfectly around the edge, so you'll get them centered every time. And while we have the die cut machine out still, I want to cut out my main embellishment out of some Raspberry Fizz felt. Actually, this isn't Papertrey Ink felt, it's just some cheap felt that I got from the craft store, but it matches this color perfectly. And I'm just going to lay down my Signature Series butterfly die right on top of the felt, and then I can just run it through exactly like I did cardstock. And it should cut it perfectly. And with these, sometimes, since this isn't high quality felt, if you use Papertrey Ink felt, it's very high quality, so it cuts really well. But if you're using the fake felt, like I am, you need to kind of help it along by cutting apart some of the fibers. But that's okay. So we have our beautiful little butterfly and our main components of the card. And I'm going to ink these edges with some Tea-Dye Distress ink, of course. And now I can just line up my card to see how it's coming along. So we're looking pretty good here. And what I also wanted to do was go ahead and make my sentiment strip. So I have another piece of rustic cream cardstock, just cut to 1 inch tall. And my sentiment is from the Signature Series Butterfly collection. And I just keep all of my 4 of these from the series in one CD case because they all fit very well together. And here's my sentiment that I'm using, the Thanks a Million sentiment. And I can go ahead and going to ink this up with some Jenny Bolin ink again. And once again, get right over it and then stamp down. And just like that, we have our sentiment. And I also wanted to make like a little banner, so I'm just going to use a square punch that I have. This one's from Fiskars. It's their large size, I believe. It's a 1 inch. And to make the banner shape, you get a perfect angle every time if you do it this way. You just line up the two corners until it looks like the point is centered in the banner, and then punch it out. And it's a perfect banner every time. Isn't that cool? So now I can ink these edges with tea-dye, Distress Ink. And then I'm going to start adhering down my pieces of my card now that I think I have all of my elements together. And I'm just going to use some tea-dye Distress Ink to go over the ridges now that I have it glued down. And then now, before I adhere down anything else, I want to use some of this natural button twine to tie a little bow around this thanks. So now that we have our little bow there, I can also add one right here. And then to balance out our visual triangle, which will be created by these two, we need a third one, so I'm going to make the antenna out of the twine. And to do that, I'm just going to cut a length and then adhere it to the back of my butterfly with a couple of glue dots. I can trim that a little bit. And now I can go ahead and start adhering things down. So I'm going to adhere most of this on dimensional adhesive. And so I'll start with the frame. So now I can, once I have this adhered down, I can just trim off the excess over here, making sure not to cut into the bow. And my beautiful little butterfly, I'm going to adhere down with lots of dimensional adhesive. Okay, and I still feel like it needs a little something. So what I'm going to do is add some gems on top of the butterfly to make the body. And then that'll give it a little bit more life. And I'm just going to use a pretty large one at the top for the head. And then a couple smaller ones for the body. And then just to finish everything off, I'm going to also add 3 more down here, 2 small ones and a medium-sized one. And then just a couple more, because I want to complete that rule of 3, that visual triangle. I'm just going to put a couple more in this corner here to finish everything off. And so I'm going to use, again, the same thing that I used there. And that really helps to balance out the card. And if you're wondering why I have 2 packs of these, it's because I buy them like 3 at a time. They're less than $2 because they're the E-line, which is from Prima, so they're really inexpensive. So I just buy a few at a time, and I usually buy them on sale. So that's why I have so many packs of those. But here we go. Here is the finished card. We use the nice little rule of 3s twice with our pearls and our twine, and just incorporated a whole bunch of really cool Papertrey Ink products into one card. So here's the finished card. And thank you very much for watching another video tutorial Monday, and I will catch you again next week.